Black women and competition in the workplace. So many of you have had this experience. I've seen your comments. I have read your emails about the experience of all skin folk and kinfolk. And we know what that is in terms of when another Black woman in the workplace is contributing to the toxicity. So we are specifically talking about competition. What does it look like when it's Black women against Black women? And we're having these conversations because we know what happens, but we don't talk about it enough. And so we're going to talk about the experiences. We're also going to talk about the impact and what to do about it. So I have a very special guest. But before I get started with that, I just want to say I'm Dr. Kamani. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and a toxic job survivor. And it is my mission to channel my inner Harriet to help as many Black women as I can to leave toxic jobs. Today, I have a very special guest. We are both in the Hello 7 Coach Certification Program with Rachel Rogers. So I'm going to turn it over to Kendra for you to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I am Kendra Nelson. I am the founder of Simply Find Your Way, which is a coaching program that focuses on getting you clarity and to launch your first offer. But I have over 18 years in corporate America in roles such as project management and finance. And so I've had my share of experiences and lived experiences and also some real solutions to how to get through some toxic environments in the workplace.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here, Kendra. So I know in our prep talk, you mentioned having multiple experiences with Black women managers, and
Yeah.
you talked about negative experiences in relation to competition. Can you
Yeah.
share with the audience what were those experiences?
Yeah, Kamani. So, in my previous employers, one of the things that was one of the experiences that was most impactful to me, and not in a great way, but in a negative way, was in a role that I was in where the manager was new to managing a team,
Mhm.
and the and as it is, as when you're new to managing your team, you're learning. The manager was learning their team, trying to figure out, what works and how they would lead this team to solve problems.
Mhm.
However, it was competition because, from my perspective at that time,
Mhm.
it was a role where I believed I was qualified for, but
Mhm.
I didn't have the courage to put myself out there and apply for it, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that caused some contention, just a little bit from on my perspective,
Mhm.
but it also created the space um, where at times when I would ask questions, I ask a whole lot of questions. All
Mhm.
right. I had a manager, one of my managers, that told me, in order to be a good leader or order to progress in your career, start out with asking the questions why, right?
Mhm.
Because you want to
Mhm.
get to a problem, the solution to a problem.
Mhm.
So in my asking questions to this manager, it was like I was being um, subordinate, right? Because I was questioning, it was perceived as I was questioning her. And so,
Mhm.
in reality, I wasn't. Well,
Mhm.
hindsight, maybe.
Well, let me say something, Kendra. I think that the action is the same, but I think that if somebody's insecure, they will perceive it in a different way. So if somebody's insecure, they will see that as, oh, you're being subordinate. And you're
Right.
just trying to ask questions.
Right, right.
Okay.
And so and what that did was it made a space where I started to silence my voice, right?
Mm.
So instead of me showing up as me and still performing well, when it came to speaking up, which I normally do a lot of, I
Mm-hmm.
started to not to speak up. I
Mm-hmm.
started to do things so that it would make the manager look great and not necessarily put me in a place where I looked or great as far as performance. And that undermined, and in reality, what that did was undermine who I am,
Mm.
undermine what I did. And at the end of the day, I was the one with the negative performance review.
Wow. So you were trying to do these things to be silent so that you kind of stayed in your place. You didn't kind of want to rock the boat, right? And then
Right,
it ends up coming back on you in terms of a negative evaluation.
right, right,
Ah,
right, right,
okay. Okay.
right. And interestingly enough, it was one of those things where, I you try to see both sides, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
there are not a lot of Black women in management and leadership positions.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one, right?
Right.
And so when you have Black women in leadership positions, especially in the finance industry and in accounting or even in corporate America, you want to make sure that sister does a great job. So you want
Mm-hmm.
to be the one behind that sister, making sure that she excels. And because when she looks good, her team looks good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good look for all of us as Black women in general, period.
Mm-hmm.
However, it starts to eat at you when you are trying to do that, but you're not really looking out for yourself. So you come
Mm-hmm.
across as being indecisive or not having clear vision or a clear pathway. In all honesty, you're wanting to support your manager because you want her to shine, right?
Ah.
You don't want to outshine your manager, because
Mm.
then there's that perceived thing about, you're doing too much. Or so
Right.
in meetings, I wouldn't say anything sometimes in meetings. I wouldn't
Yeah.
share my opinion because I would look to my manager to say that, or to
Yeah.
say something so that that manager can be. So that was almost like the competition piece, right? The
Mm.
competition piece where um actually, where you want to do it, and in cases where you may have decided to speak up, you
Mhm.
still looking to make sure, did I say that all right? Am I really competing with her, or
Mhm.
is she okay with that, or is she going to think that I'm subordinate to her, right?
Mm. So by not wanting to seem like you're competing with her, you silence yourself, but it ended up coming back at you in a negative way. And as a manager, I'm assuming that your role is to help support your employees' growth. So if there's areas that they're not doing well in, it wasn't like she pulled you to the side and said, Kendra, I need more of this from you, or right? It just ended up in a negative evaluation.
It was one of those things where you didn't know it until you got the performance review.
Oh, it was like a slap in the face,
Yes,
a punch in the gut.
yes,
Ah, okay, okay.
yes,
So you talked about it made you silence yourself, right? And that you put other people's needs in front of yours. So that
yes,
was one of those experiences, right?
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes,
And then you
yes.
mentioned it was like two others, right?
Yes, another experience, and um, I recall this very vividly. I
Mhm.
remember, it's interesting that in all cases, it was um, either managers that were new to the department or managers that were new to the company, in all cases.
Okay.
And in all cases, I will admit my accountability in this. Again, like I said earlier, it was one of those things where I didn't feel I was qualified, even though I was doing the job at this time.
Mhm.
For this particular instance, I was doing the job for about 6 months. I was the lead that was managing the team, and
Mhm.
I was making sure that we were meeting all of our deliverables. And
Mhm.
but I didn't apply for the role. So again, my accountability, not being courageous enough in my own strengths and what I
Mhm.
knew.
Mhm.
Um, so when the new manager came to the team, it
Mhm.
was again another instance where um, the manager was taken aback by the questioning, right? The questioning. And also, I remember vividly one of the managers saying to me was that to bloom where you are planted, right? So, right. right? To bloom where you are planted, so that whatever is going on, you just be the person that blooms in this condition, no matter where you are.
Even though I don't understand where I'm at, even though I'm trying to get clarity about what's happening, you just figure it out and just bloom,
Right.
basically. Okay.
Right. Then
It's a
basically
black
the
woman, right?
yeah. So
Okay.
basically the intent behind that was to say, you have to do what you need to do. It was to a point that I remember, get this, I remember I was in a car accident,
Mm.
and I was out for 4 weeks,
Mhm.
and the black manager referred me, compared me to another person who was in a car accident, and they had all these broken bones or whatever, or so to speak, more in depth, more serious injuries, right? The
Mhm.
person had more serious injuries. And
Mhm.
the manager asked me, well, why don't you come into work earlier?
What?
Because you really don't have, sustainable visible injuries.
Mm.
This person went into work, right? Came
Mm.
back. This person had a car accident. Why can't you come into work? I was like,
Wow.
I had a traumatic experience, right?
How does it feel?
I had an accident, and that was very traumatic.
Yeah.
My car rotated like
Wow.
360 degrees about a couple of times.
Oh my
Right? It
gosh.
was so bad that I remember going to work and I had the food in my hand. My mom always tell me, don't eat and drive, right? But I had the food in my hand, and the food was because the car went spun around so many times and hopped up on the curve that
Mm.
it was all over my car. But
Mm.
nonetheless, I say that to paint the picture of that experience of that car accident, and how
Mm.
this black manager, compared me to another person that had an accident and was like, you should come to work,
Well, you
right?
know what, Kendra? It really reminds me of, for Black women, many times in the workplace, that we are seen as workhorses, that we're not really human, that we don't deserve not only respect, but even compassion.
Right.
So basically, she was dehumanizing you, like, girl, get over it.
Yeah.
Right. And just like,
Yeah.
for black women too, that we're always told we're so strong, you got this, girl, you got this. But to our detriment, she wasn't trying to look out for your health,
No,
your well-being, your healing, none of that. And
no,
trying to shame you.
no, exactly. And so
Uh-huh.
in that, and I believe it may have been that incident, but that same manager also compared me as far as competition. I think I remember it was a performance review where it was saying that I need to be more competitive than my peers. And I was like, what do you mean? Right. And so that, because I was performing well, but it was one of the things that was kind of another thing that also silenced me some more, because you think you're doing what you're supposed to do, you're
Mhm.
being told all these things, so your voice just starts to be silenced even more.
Right.
And that was an incident that I'll never forget. Um,
Mm. Yeah, that was very insensitive. Very
yeah,
insensitive.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And there was a third one, Kendra?
The third one, I remember this third one where I was in a meeting. Well, this one has so many different factors, um, because I was not only in competition with, or put in a toxic environment where the competition with the manager, but also competition amongst your peers. So that's something else
Mhm.
that we have to think about,
Mhm.
that you face as well in corporate. And in this particular instance, it was more of, uh, I had a very ambitious manager, again, wanting to ensure that the wanting to ensure that all the things that were done by, when I say ensure that everything that was being, how can I say, she wanted to make sure that the department looked good, basically,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So that everything was appeared that everything was in control in this department. New manager coming in,
Mhm.
and I remember that as she was interviewing certain people within my department,
Mhm.
there was again the question of, you know, my curiosity came into play,
Mhm.
and the a team member cried in this person's office, and I was now perceived as the angry black woman,
Wait,
right?
wait. So the team member was crying about you,
Mm-hmm.
to the black woman.
Mm-hmm.
And so the team member, was that another black person too?
No.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
then the stereotype, the angry black woman. So then what happened when this person went in to talk about you?
So when this person went to talk about me, now there's a perceived, because there's a new manager learning new people. I've already
Mhm.
have a strike against me being perceived as the
Mm,
angry black woman. And
mm,
so when we were in a meeting, I was asking questions in this meeting,
mhm,
and what happened was that the manager was one of the things where the manager was uh, talk for not realizing her voice,
mhm.
meaning not realizing that she was talking like she was talking to a child, right? And so there are cases when you are in a situation where you can be, maybe it's for a lack of communication. I don't know what it was,
Mhm.
but the manager was communicating, but communicating to me and only me at that time in a room full of people, like I was a child. So very
Ooh.
demeaning,
Ooh. So
very
basically humiliating you in front of the team.
I can't say the word, but yes, that in front of the team. And
Wow.
then for the very first time in my career, I was written up, went to
Mm,
HR, yeah, for that. And then here's a trigger.
mhm.
When approached, this manager cried in the office and said apologize and was like, I had to do it, I'm sorry. Right?
She had to write you up?
Yeah.
Why?
Because what was perceived by the team members that came into her office.
Uh-huh. And why was she crying?
I, you know that um, I don't know, but you can only read between the lines of why she was crying.
Uh-huh.
It's
Uh-huh.
one of those things when you know when you do something wrong, it comes
Yeah.
out as tears.
Yeah. Yeah. But above all, just very unprofessional.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Right.
And so you talked before, I heard two times you talked about that there were opportunities available to you and you chose not to do that, right?
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
terms of insecurities and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So the insecurity sounds like, and then you had managers who were insecure about you asking questions. So it was like a perfect storm,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And then you had some managers who were talking to you about we need you to be more competitive. So it's interesting when you think about workplaces sometimes because you can have the external trying to make you competitive, and then sometimes you can have other people trying to like size you up and stuff like that. I had one of
Yeah.
my coworkers, Kendra, black woman, told me flat out that she had sized me up and she knew what I was good at and what I wasn't good at.
Hmm.
And she had been watching me,
I've had that
right?
too. I've had that too.
Yeah. So
I've had that too.
tell us a little bit about that, the sizing up kind of stuff.
Well, it's interesting because it's only sized up and you don't even realize it, right? You'll
Mm,
get comments like, I see you, or I'm watching you, right?
mm,
And so when opportunities come, that means that that person has already went for that opportunity and you don't, right?
uh-huh. So
So you,
they've already peeped out the resources and what might be available. And that relates to, I saw this video recently. It was from Alicia Renice, and she talked about jealousy and envy. And
hmm
she was talking about jealousy and envy comes from a place of scarcity. So if
hmm
you feel like there's not enough, that's the one thing. And if you feel insecure on some level, you feel like you got to get it because this
hmm
proves something to you. And
hmm
so when you're saying that there were people watching you and say, "Oh, I'm watching you," and they're rushing to get things in terms of kind of
hmm
squeeze you out, So
Mhm.
those are the types of competition. So how did all these experiences impact you, Kendra?
So I would tell you a couple things. Like I said, I know that I have my part. Hindsight, looking back, I
Mm-hmm.
know that like I said, my part is that sometimes it can perceive that I can come across with asking too many questions or asking
Mm-hmm.
why, um, um, in ways that may be perceived as, like you said, insubordinate. So I have my share of accountability in looking back to see whether or not there were times where I could have done things differently. But
Mm-hmm.
in going forward, what I realized is a couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
One is to really know myself, right? And
Mm-hmm.
have the courage to really know myself and
Mm-hmm.
know what my strengths are, what am I capable of, and
Mm-hmm.
to not let that be overshadowed to what I can do.
Right.
Oftentimes you think about that, especially in corporate environments, because
Mm-hmm.
of the politics and the culture. So that's
Mm-hmm.
another game, a thin line that you do have to think about, especially if you're in a corporate career, because
Mm-hmm.
you have to. Well, in my experience, you have to weigh that very carefully, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That corporate culture line. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, what it took was, it took me some time, because one of the things that happens is that if you one of the things that had happened was I would take that baggage from one role to another role, and in the same time I would be reducing myself, stifling my
Mm-hmm.
voice more and more, and not believe in what I can do and what I can accomplish. And
Mm-hmm.
so, one of the things that I focused on was, one, I got help, right? This
Okay, good.
this is where therapy comes into place, because
Yes.
you just never know that you may be dealing also with the corporate things in a toxic environment, but
Mm-hmm.
there may be some things in your past experience from childhood, from
Yeah,
on both sides, that may contribute to that, right? So
absolutely.
and then therapy, because I come from a background or a family that is religious in some
Mm-hmm.
cases, you raised in the church, that's not
Mm-hmm.
really looked at as something to do when you need
Yeah,
help, right?
yeah,
It's like the last thing, you know.
yeah.
You hear, all I need is Jesus, but
Right. Pray it away, girl. Pray it away.
we just go pray away. And I need Jesus. I'm not gonna lie,
Yes.
I do need Jesus, right?
Yes.
But I do also need someone to help me get me through some of that trauma, so that I can heal, and so
Yeah.
that I can know that the people that have been in my path with the managers that I've experienced, they may
Mhm.
have been healing from some toxicity as well,
Well,
right?
absolutely. Let me say something, okay? First, I want to say that I heard somebody say this before. I don't know who it was, but they said, I got Jesus and therapy,
That's
right?
right.
So they can go together. You don't have to choose one or the over the other.
That's
The
right.
other thing is clearly when people act out in the workplace, that is a telltale sign about deep-seated insecurity. So
Yes.
when they are doing things, when they feel insecure, all that stuff, that comes from their own insecurities, their own unresolved issues, their own hurt. So we already know that, okay?
Right.
What you said was so golden and so priceless that I hope that Black women can hear what you said. You talked about each time you were in these toxic jobs, it took part of your self-esteem,
It did.
right? So you were broken down each job, and then you were like broken down to the next job and taking that to the next job. But at a certain point, you realize, you know what? I'm being broken by these situations and I'm going to seek therapy. How did you decide that? Because I think that's the part people miss. They can get the part about,
Mm-hmm.
these jobs are hurting me. They can get that part, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then what was that moment, or how did you get to the process of saying, I need help?
It, I was in Costco in a parking lot, and I was just fed up. I was in tears. I was just dealing with a whole lot of other emotions besides, as a parent of one, right?
Mhm,
You have your own issues of raising your own family.
mhm,
You are in the sandwich generation where you
mhm,
are a caregiver and sometimes the one for your parents,
mhm,
and also taking care of your child. It was the
mhm,
pandemic. Um,
mm,
And it was just one of those things where I was like, you know what? I cannot live no longer in this situation the way I
Mhm.
am.
Yeah.
So that was the key.
Mhm.
And my therapist helped me heal through a lot of things. Um,
Mm.
and she helped me to move through a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where you have to also think about that no matter what you're going through, um,
Mhm.
and even though you may think that, we can paint the picture of the manager as being the villain. We can paint
Mhm.
the picture of all of the toxic environment, although
Mhm.
it very is true of being the villain.
True.
But there is a point in time where we have to take the reins
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
take control and figure out what is my part, how am I due to heal myself, and then what
Mhm.
what are my exit strategy steps.
Right. And right. How do I take my power back? Because I see what they're doing to me. More than likely, it's not going to change. It's going to get worse. And am I choosing to then stay in this environment that's hurting me? Or am I choosing something different? That's the part that I think we get tripped up with, that we can recognize we can take our power back by
Yeah,
saying no more and
yeah,
getting the healing, getting the support that we need. And Kendra, you said something else that was really powerful too. You talked about sometimes at jobs, because of what's happening, it can trigger other traumas that we've had in our lives.
of
And
course.
so that's when you know that it's really toxic, because now it's like, oh my God, my job is reminding me about the stuff that happened to me before, or it's a parallel experience. I can absolutely say that happened to me. So let's talk about this too, Kendra, because you put it out there, right? So in terms of if you have family or people around you, like you said, who are
Mhm.
pretty religious, right? And they may not understand therapy. How did you move past that expectation that you just stay in the church, you don't go to therapy? How did you move past that? And did you tell other people who you're close to
Hmm.
about you going to therapy?
Ooh, that's a really good question. That is like an on the spot question. Um, and one of the things in my healing is for me
Mhm.
to be authentic and not hide behind a mask. That's
Mhm.
number one, right?
Yes.
And that's number one in corporate that I've learned too is not hiding
Mhm.
behind a mask. I would
Mhm.
say this that it's the same upbringing and the same religious um, lessons that led me to the therapy to let me know that it was okay, right?
Ah, okay.
Right?
Okay.
Because because it was one of those things where I believe in divine appointment, I believe
Mhm.
in divine opportunities, I
Mhm.
believe in divine placement.
Mm.
And when I found my therapist, because my therapist was not insurance paid, right? It was I used my FHA because I just connected and clicked with her.
Yeah. So important.
So it was one of those things where you know that when you find someone that has that personality, that has that type, it click. But
Yeah.
did I tell immediately? No, I did not tell immediately, right?
Good.
Even though it was divine, in my opinion, it was
Yeah.
because I believe the God we serve is okay with therapy, right?
Yes. Yes. God wants us to be healed and healthy and
Yes,
wants us to live a good life.
yes,
Yes.
yes. And I believe that over time I did share and it was received openly. Um,
Awesome.
not understood, but received, right?
Yes, yes, yes. And you know what, Kendra, you did exactly what I tell clients to do, because, we know in our community, there's been this huge stigma about mental health. It's
Yeah,
gotten better over time, but a huge stigma. And so I would say to people, you don't have to tell people you're in therapy. It's none of
yeah,
their business. You don't have to
yeah,
tell them. And
yeah.
you are the one living your life. They are not. So if somebody's telling you don't do something that can help you heal, that's
Mm,
problematic,
mm,
okay, already. But
yeah,
you were like, no, I know I need this for myself and I'm going to
yeah,
get my healing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Beautiful.
And that's the road to recovery. One.
Absolutely.
That's the
Absolutely.
that's the first road
Absolutely.
to recovery.
Yes,
Because
as you recognize you need the help. Wait, I have to say something, Kendra, because I've heard you say this word courageous several times.
mhm,
You were courageous, right? You said I wasn't courageous enough. You were courageous. So for whatever was going on in your life at that time, you were operating out of how what was going on in that time, right?
true,
So you
true.
were courageous at that time. And you were super courageous to go seek therapy.
That's true.
Super
That's true,
courageous.
right?
Yes.
That's true. That's true. I never
Yes.
thought of it that way, right? I just thought of
Absolutely.
it. I just think of it as at some point in time of your life, you just get fed up, right? You
Yes.
have to take action somewhere or another. You have
Yeah.
you have to take action to move because um, victimhood doesn't look good on any of us.
Yeah. And victimhood keeps us stuck and it makes us feel helpless and hopeless. And you
Yeah,
can't move forward like that, right?
right.
And you in that Costco parking lot and you knew, I'm done with this. This is too much. It was me when I was in the doctor's office parking lot to get another doctor's note that the job was stressing me out and making me sick and I couldn't go back to work. I'm in a parking lot, boohoo crying
Mm,
just like you, Costco,
mm,
right? So it comes
mm.
to a point. I think a lot of Black women, we get to a point, and it's just like, I can't take this anymore. I cannot take this anymore.
Yeah,
So,
it does. It
mhm,
does get to that point, and um, aside from the competition topic,
mhm,
just the environment.
mhm.
I know that there are times, we feel, that Mondays are the worst day. Mondays were sometimes, in some cases, were the worst days, right? Because
Girl, Sunday at 5 o'clock was the worst for me.
right, because you in your head you're thinking like, oh my gosh, I don't feel like going,
Yeah,
and then you're right, you start feeling so much anxiety, right,
yeah,
about coming into the office and
mhm,
dealing with things, and that to the point where you were a star performer, you were operating in excellence, that no longer shines. I think
yeah,
Pam Slim talks about it in her book, The Body of Work, about the three categories you fall in and when it's time to leave. And
mhm,
at that time when you are at the point where your performance is starting to falter,
mhm.
that's more than a telltale sign. You should have took
Yeah,
some action beforehand to figure
yeah,
out what your exit strategy is. But
yeah. And I think,
oftentimes we are
mhm.
compelled to stay
Yes,
because we have families, we have
yes,
finances, we don't
yes.
know, and in some cases, or don't believe in ourselves and our abilities and our potential enough that there will be another opportunity that's better.
Yeah, let's unpack that. Let's unpack that because a lot of Black women, from what I've heard and even from my own experience, that we stay in toxic jobs because of the fear that we need to have the money and what's going to replace the money and what we're going to do. So it's a very much fear based. And
Yes.
we have the fear that we won't be able to find something else, even though the data shows us we can. We got that job. We've gotten other jobs. We've done well. So, what I've noticed is that when sometimes we talk about thinking about leaving a toxic job, what I sometimes get sometimes from comments is,
Mhm.
right, how do we go from going from a toxic job, leaving a toxic job, so you're going to be homeless? It's a fear based response. And we have to recognize what the fear is so we can confront the fear and we can move past the fear, right? Because the fear is going to be there. So, and I see that your light went out, Kendra,
I
but
like you now. I'm
yeah.
working on it.
No, it still looks good, Kendra. It's fine. It's fine. You don't
Okay.
have to worry about it. Yeah.
Okay.
So when we think about fear and we talk about not having options and we talk about responsibility and we didn't talk about this, but I hear this a lot and I know I experienced this. Other people around us in our circle telling us to stay at the job, saying,
Ooh,
"Oh, it's a girl. That's a good job. You better not leave
ooh.
that job. You better not leave that job." So we have that too. So you have all that stuff, which makes it harder for us to recognize the signs that the job is hurting us psychologically, hurting us physically, because we have
Yes.
all of these different pressures. So you want to speak to that too, Kendra?
Yeah. So in my cases, in both my cases,
Mm-hmm.
I was impacted. So I no longer was at the roles or at the job, but I will speak that to the point where I am today.
Mm-hmm.
So earlier this year was impacted by the tech layoffs, and one of the things, and this is how you and I met through the Hello 7 certification, because it's about and on my healing journey of figuring out what is it that I am destined to do, that I can do
Yes.
best,
Yes.
that I can bring my true authentic self into this world and help
Mm-hmm.
heal and change, and also provide some knowledge and resources at the same time.
Yes.
So it's one of those things where you are on that balancing wheel
Mm-hmm.
where, should I go back into this corporate culture because
Mm-hmm.
that's where I know I'm going to get consistent income?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to make enough on my entrepreneurial journey to sustain myself, to sustain my
Mm-hmm.
family?
Mm-hmm.
Am I even good enough to even launch this business? Right?
So the
Right?
insecurity comes back up.
All these questions come up in your mind.
Yeah.
Everything in the book comes in your mind. But
Yeah.
then when you I think about what drives me even further today,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is um, I'm not going to say that all cultures in corporate are toxic, because I have had some great managers, right? I had some really great managers, and I attribute my learning and my foundations from my corporate 101, 201, 301 knowledge, right?
Okay.
Right. So these are all skill sets that I've learned in
Mm-hmm.
my roles. Again, it goes speaks to Pamela Slim's talking about the body of work. But
Mm-hmm.
that fear is like a dangling hook, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those things that says that, you better go back to work and go get you a good job,
Oh.
so you don't have to worry about your bills, or so you don't have to worry about taking care of your responsibilities,
Mm-hmm.
or you'll be suffering in this
Mm-hmm.
space of
Mm-hmm.
where you are of um, on this journey of entrepreneurship. And it's
Mm-hmm.
hard.
Yeah.
It is very hard and very challenging.
Yeah.
But speaking to that, but I would rather right now, I'm not saying that I won't never go back into corporate America. That's something
Mm-hmm.
that I may do. You just never
Mm-hmm.
know, because we all need a W-2 investor sometime in our lives, right?
True. Well, let me say this. Let me say this, everybody. I want you to hear what she just said. Your job can be the investor to your business. So you can be at a W-2, you can be at the job, and you can use some of that money to help you pivot to the next thing, to your own thing. I just had to say that. Okay, go on, Kendra.
Yeah. So a couple of things, right? So one of the things in this journey has provided me with clarity. The
Mm-hmm.
clarity is one, I can work better in corporate America today as I stand than I can 5 months ago. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know and stand in who I am,
Mm-hmm.
right? I no longer am thinking about the corporate politics
Mm-hmm.
or the escape. So you're hiring me to get this project and this deliverable done.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I'm running my own business. That's using the strengths and identifying my strengths and figure out, okay, how I'm going to solve this problem, make sure
Mm-hmm.
the client is satisfied, make sure that the customer gets what they need, and I meet the deadline, and I move on to the next one. And we're all happy campers between myself and my employer or my investor.
There
Right?
we go. I love that.
Right?
I love
And
that.
so,
Yeah.
and so and then what it also does, it frees you up from the toxicity, because now you're in a place where you know yourself. You know
Yes.
you're capable. I had a conversation with one of my girlfriends, one of my very close girlfriends, and
Mm-hmm.
we talked about this during our. We have a lunch once a week, and
Mm-hmm.
one of our saying is that I am the best. right? So you have to remember that you are the best, right? So as the best, you're going to go into that work, that investor, you're going to be the best and you're going to do what
Yeah.
you need to do. And now you're going to focus on this entrepreneurial because you know that this is what's going to bring you long lasting wealth. This is going
Yeah.
to create legacies. This is going to create you flexibility in
Yeah.
time, flexibility for your family, and it's
Yeah.
also going to provide you freedom, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
your own happiness of using your own innate gifts, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is one of the things that I'm truly blessed to be in a position to realize that now. Some
Mm-hmm.
and you may think if your listeners out there may think, well, maybe it's not my time. Every
Mm-hmm.
time is your time, right?
Ooh, I
Every
love that.
every time is your time. And
Yes. And can I say this?
mhm,
When you think about every time is your time, don't wait until you don't feel the fear. You are
right.
going to feel the fear. You're going to feel the fear at the W-2. You're going to feel the fear when you're doing stuff on your own. But
Yes.
the key is, how do you walk through it? And
Yes.
how do you address those insecurities that might
Yes.
show up?
Yes. And so to answer your question to how, one
Mhm,
is that you have to make sure that sometimes you have to ask for help. And that's the biggest thing that we as women sometimes don't do because
mhm,
we're taught to be independent, take
mhm,
care of our own things, run things. But
mhm,
sometimes asking for help, meaning seeking out that therapist,
mhm,
right? Or
mhm,
seeking out the help of someone that's close to you that can guide you to have some to
mhm,
be that voice of reason to help you sort through some of those things. Me,
mhm,
I think therapy is the best because
mhm.
you get to deal with some of the trauma and you get
with
to
an
work
with
through
an
it.
objective person. So not somebody gonna tell your business to somebody else, and they
Bingo.
got their own opinions. They get an attitude because you chose to do whatever, whatever. And I want to say too, Kendra, you talked about the importance of getting help, and I just want to emphasize to Black women, absolutely therapy, and outside of therapy, be mindful of who you get help from. So
Right.
choosing to talk to people at the workplace, that's on you. I don't know if
No,
that's a good idea.
no.
Okay. But just be mindful of who you get that help from, because I have seen so many times, I've experienced it. My dear friend Colette Elizabeth is in the chat. She's talked about how those so-called friends come back and they tell on you, and you think that you think that they're your friends, and they telling on you. So that's the one thing. The other thing, Kendra, I have to say this. So when you said you would be a different person if you had to go back to corporate America or go back to a W
Yeah.
2, and I
Yeah.
just want to say to Black women, we have the flexibility to do that. So if you
Yes.
say, you know what, I need to raise some money for my business, okay, maybe you have a job temporarily, whatever,
Yes.
that's good, right? But you know it's temporary. But what's different as you are coming into that space, you're grounded in knowing who you are. You're
Yes.
grounded in your gifts. You're grounded.
Yes.
I say grounded in your greatness, right? You're grounded in all that stuff. So when people start trying to tear you apart, you're like, what? Like, you're tripping, because I know what I'm working with. And when you said that you're great, I just want to say this to people. I say a saying, me and my friends, my close friends, and I say this to each other. I'm not going to say the full word, but Jill Scott says it, and I say it too. I am the,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
okay? And I
Yes.
know I am.
Yes.
So I am the, right? And
Mhm.
if you can't see that, or if you're trying to see my job, that former job, was trying to treat me like I was that. I
Right.
was
Right.
SHIT, right?
Right.
But I'm like, I am the
Right.
SHIT, right?
Right.
So, like, no, you cannot do that to me. So, Kendra, can you share, if there's a Black woman right now watching this discussion and
Yeah.
she can relate to anything you're saying, what words of wisdom would you want to say to her?
Ooh, first breathe, baby.
Mm,
Just take a deep breath. That's
yeah.
the first thing. Just to breathe all of you in, right?
Mhm.
That's number one because you have gifts, you have strengths, you have purpose, and the job is just a job, and the job does not make you who you are. That's
No.
one of the things that we do. We tie our identities to a
Yep.
role, We
Yep.
sometimes tie our identities to a position. We
Yep.
sometimes tie our identities to a company. But
Yep.
baby, your identity is the natural identity that God gave you, or the source that you believe in gave you. That's
Yeah.
the one thing to believe in first, right?
Mhm.
And that
Mhm.
you didn't get where you are today because of someone else in that toxic job. You got
Exactly.
there because of who you are. So
Yes.
that's the first thing that I would say to you, right?
Ooh.
Remember that piece.
Yes.
And foremost, remember that, right?
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
once you remember that, then you take up space, right?
Mhm.
You take up space in all of that era of who you are, because you have to remember who you are, queen. You have
Yeah.
to. And
Yeah.
then next, you seek help, right? If there's a no, that no is not a denial. That no is a not yet until that no becomes a yes.
Yes.
And then
Absolutely.
you prepare, right? You plan your exit. One of the things I talk about in planning your exit is using different resources and tools. I love learning. I'm always curious, which
Mhm.
drew me to technology like artificial intelligence and chat GPT,
Mhm.
where you can use tools like that to increase your productivity, and your manager, your whoever is, once you start increasing your productivity, you have
Mhm.
more time on your hands to focus on you,
Ooh.
to
Yes.
focus on you, right?
Yes.
And you can
Yes.
also use that same productivity and times to focus on your business, right? And you
Yes.
may not want to start your own business. You may just want to up level your career, right?
Mhm.
You may just want to go to that next level and then figure out, how can I use my strengths to get there, because the door and the culture may not be um, may not be conditioned to receive you at the time.
Hmm.
Put it that way, right?
Well,
And
let me
so,
say this. Let me say this. It may not, environment may not be able to fully support you and support your growth
right.
because your growth is intimidating to other people who are, again, deeply insecure. So you may be able to use certain skills and do what you need to do, but also be mindful, aware, look at the signs, pay attention. And if it's harming you, then, like you said, let's start talking about exit strategies.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm,
You
mhm.
have to talk about that, and then really digging deep and finding the courage.
Yeah,
Finding the squad around you to take the courage to take that first step. All you need is one step. You just
yeah,
need to do one step. You-
yeah,
It's like, take the leap and the net will appear. That's all you
yeah,
need to do. There's just
yeah,
that one step.
yeah. And I have to be courageous. And I think that for some people, they believe that going to therapy is a sign of weakness and it's a sign
Mhm.
of tremendous strength and courage, that you are recognizing what you need for yourself and you're going to get that support and you are doing some hard work that's painful. So, no, you are not weak. The other part, Kendra, that you said in terms of many times we define ourselves in terms of a job title, our jobs, all that kind of stuff. What we're saying as Black women is that we are reclaiming our power back, that these
Mhm.
jobs, which many times are like plantations, they don't own us, they don't
Mhm.
define us. And I'm thinking about Stephanie Perry. She talked about, first of all, she said, a job that is killing you is not a good job. And then she
Mhm.
also talked about a job is a means to an end. It's a means to get money. That is it. It is
Right.
not your everything. It is not,
Right.
right? And
Right.
whatever you're doing at that job, you can do it somewhere else. You have options. The fact that you got that job, nobody, I'm sure for us as Black people, Black women, generally nobody is handing out jobs to us.
Right.
It is
Right.
hard for us to get these jobs. So if you got that job, you can get another job.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's what
all
you
very
want to do,
true.
right? Right,
Mhm.
right.
That is so very true. Very true.
Yes. So, Kendra, you talked about in terms of healing, you talked about getting the help. You said therapy, right? What else has been helpful for you in terms of as you're pivoting? What else has been helpful or healing for you?
Healing for me looks like getting up and going for a walk, right?
Hmm.
So moving your body.
Yeah.
is healing. And sometimes that means, and I do it in so many different ways, right? So that can be me going for a walk. It's I started out this summer with 5K Sundays, right? And so the 5K Sunday, a 5K is roughly, I think it's either 3.1 miles, right?
Okay.
And starting out with just a walk, just once a week. I started just walking 5K once a week.
Mm-hmm.
That walk clears your mind,
Yes,
right?
it does.
It helps provide clarity with your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
For those that are believers or whoever you believe in your source, it helps you really listen to that
Mm.
voice to
Yeah.
work through that. So that was powerful for me on my healing journey,
Mm-hmm.
was to start incorporating some daily movement into my life, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So whether that means me taking a walk, whether it means me picking up my Oculus and doing some boxing on my Oculus for a couple of minutes, or just walking outside and walking circles in the cul-de-sac. Just having that movement every day, and
Yeah.
then just having positive affirmations. I started
Mm.
listening to an artist by the name, and I just started listening to her
Mm-hmm.
maybe about 3 weeks ago. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very important who you listen to and what you listen to is
Mm-hmm.
important. So whether it's uh, I was going to say I started listening to Tony Jones a couple of weeks ago, but before
Mm-hmm.
that, it was it was the positive YouTube people to listen to. Like I was telling Kamani during the time when I was experiencing my toxics, I found her YouTube. I just was looking for something, and I can't remember. I don't know if I was searching black toxic jobs or black women, and she came up, and I listened to, and I was like, you know what, this is right on time. Right, because it spoke to what I was going through. So
Yeah.
a part of the healing journey is making sure that you have the positive influences around you, making
Yeah.
sure that you have those in your ear, whether
Yeah.
it is a YouTube, whether it is music, whether it's a
Mm-hmm.
daily affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
That is critical to your healing journey. And then the
Mm-hmm.
other thing that's critical to your healing journey is really meditating, right?
Mm.
That could be in prayer,
Yeah.
but my light is going out. That can be in prayer, or that can be just sitting quietly a couple of minutes each in the morning or in the evening, because
Mm-hmm.
what that does is really tune you into who you are. Uh, we
Yes.
tend to forget
Center yourself.
we tend to forget who we are because we play so many roles. We're mom, we're
Yeah.
wives, we
Yeah.
are the caregiver, we
Mm-hmm.
are the the person at work, we're the leader, we are the managers. Because don't
Mm-hmm.
forget, even though we are the managers, we're the workers, we play so many different hats. The
Yeah.
PTA organization, the sorority organization, the professional organizations, we play so many roles, and
Yeah.
sometimes we have to dig deep and tap into our own strengths to just hear what that voice says.
Exactly. Because let me say this too. Being busy like that, and I think a lot of Black women can relate to that, being busy all the time, that's a trauma response.
Mm,
Because when you're always busy, you can't connect to what's really happening for you. You can't recognize the signs. You can't attend to yourself. So
yeah.
we're inviting everyone to pause. You need to take moments to pause. And also shout out to the Net Ministry. Get some rest, right? Which is important too. And then, Kendra, when you talked about walking outside, I just want to stress to everyone the importance of being outside, because vitamin D is a natural mood elevator. Don't cost nothing. Just go outside and get some vitamin D that helps uplift you, uplift your mood. Movement helps to uplift your mood. And then Kendra and I were both part of the coaching program. So that's another example of how we are getting help too,
Right.
and learning different tools so we can help other people. And sometimes it's recognizing, you know what, I need some help. I can't figure this out. Let me get help. And then it builds community. So we're in a community of other people who are in the same coaching program to
Mhm.
help us. So the hope is that people watching this, that you form your community, you get the help you need. So Kendra, as we're winding down, can you share with the audience what is it that you're doing now and how people can contact you?
Sure. So I am. I'm launching Simply Find Your Way, right? And that Simply Find Your Way speaks to just finding who you are, what your offer is, seeking clarity about yourself, and launching your offer in 6 weeks. So during the 6 weeks of my coaching program, we walk through getting clarity of your strengths, what your strengths are. We figure out, what is it that you're great at and where you get the most energy in your greatness based upon your past experiences. And then we put all that together to create a roadmap going forward. So with that, we meet weekly for 6 weeks. And we also, most importantly, I teach you about AI. So not just Chat GPT, there are other tools like Monica AI, which Monica helps you create communication, like your emails, and it help you to be able to do it in less than time. So something that may have taken you maybe 30 minutes to 40 minutes to do, you can do it in 5 minutes. I'll also help you if you are ready to plan your exit strategy. We can work on your resume and your cover letter using ChatGPT and AI. And you can use that to make sure that you are hitting all those ATS words, so it's passing through the applicant tracking systems, as
Mhm.
well as preparing you for interviews, right? So AI can help you prepare for interviews. It can help you come up with the questions. It can help you formulate the answers based upon your resume, based upon what you tell it to do. And so that also saves you time. So my program, 6 weeks to clarity, is your launch your offer accelerator. And you can reach me at simplyfindyourway@gmail.com.
Mhm.
Or yeah, I think, yeah, simplyfindyourway@gmail.com is where you can find me. I'm also on Facebook as Kendra Nelson, and I am also on LinkedIn as Kendra Nelson.
Awesome. So I'll put all of Kendra's information in the description section. So Kendra, before we sign off, I do want to read the chat because I love the chat. The chat is very active, and I generally see that the chat is very supportive of one another. And I just want to say this too before I read the chat. Kendra talked about finding my YouTube channel. And I am so humbled by so many Black women who are reaching out to me and they're like, oh my God, or I watch your channel. I can't wait for your next video. And that is, it's amazing to me. And so I'm so thankful to the Black women whom I'm helping. And again, I started this channel over a year ago. I started this channel because I was in that toxic job. I'd taken a leave of absence. And I started the channel because I knew I needed to talk about what was happening to me. I knew it. And I knew that they were trying to silence me at that toxic job. So for me, I got louder and I had the YouTube channel. And the blessing is that I am actually helping other Black women. So I just want to say that I am full of gratitude that Black women are benefiting from what I'm sharing in terms of my message and the message of other Black women. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. Okay, so I'm going to read the chat. So I see my dear friend Colette Elizabeth is here. My dear friend Marissa Price is here. Marissa is my VA. She is outstanding. Oh, and then Colette is saying, Kendra Nelson, welcome to the community, sis. Yeah, been there with the white woman. I was just trying to understand, and because she didn't know the answer, it felt like a call out. Yep. Ooh, and the tone policing too, right? Like, oh,
Mhm.
I could have listened to you, but it was how you said it, right?
Mhm.
Asking questions is what you have to do in a new role. Wow, I'm sorry. I agree that insecurity also creates jealousy, which the white colleagues sit back and calculate their moves. Yep. Yep, you got to be aware of the game, right?
Mhm.
There are so many mixed messages in corporate America as Black women. Yep, our silence also creates us to be so unhealthy inside, mentally and physically. It does. It does. And that is exactly why I started this YouTube channel. And my
Mhm.
hope is that by Black women seeing what I'm talking about, that you don't have to broadcast like I'm doing, but that you no longer are silenced to yourself or lying to yourself, and that you get the support that you need. So yes, the silence is very that adds to the trauma. I think your son is in the chat. Um, Kendra, you sound so courageous just listening to your story. Putting a Black women in their place is also common in government as well. I think it's all industries. Thank you, Colette. There's no room for our humanity in so many of these workplaces. Absolutely. Dehumanizing us like we are workhorses.
Mm,
It's true. How we are treated. This is fruit from slavery and plantation when pregnant enslaved women were required to work in the fields while pregnant, then
mm,
expected to return to the field right after they gave birth in the field. Yep,
mhm, mhm,
exactly. Exactly. Just like you heard from Kendra, you had that car accident. Girl, get back to it, right?
mhm, mhm, mhm,
Oh no, not the tears. Here we go. The helpless damsels in distress versus the angry black women trope. When she dressed you down in front of everyone, it was equivalent to a public whipping.
mhm,
Absolutely.
mhm,
Asking questions for clarification gets perceived as insubordination. Then they get to ignore the question because they think you're being cheeky. They get
mhm,
mad if you do the assignment wrong. Yes,
mhm,
that's a
mhm,
trick. That's
mhm,
a mind trick, right? That's a
mhm.
mind. We got to be aware of that. If you're a black, oh, thank you, Marissa. Okay, so Marissa's my VA, so she's reminding me that I need to remind Black women that I can help you too, right? So if you're a Black woman and you're ready to leave a toxic job, please book a discovery call with me. You can click the link in the description section. We can talk about where you are right now at your job, when do you want to leave, and we can come up with the exit plan. We can have it all together, okay? So thank you, Marissa. Thank you. Okay. It's not going to go well when these situations, right? After being in management for decades, I learned that incompetent, immature, and insecure leaders, managers, and supervisors do not understand that their team is there to complete them, not to compete with
Mm,
them. Ooh,
mm,
Colette.
mm,
That is
mm.
so dope. That's a mic drop right there. Let's see. Thank you. Please hit the like button. Yes, Mercy, you're so dope. Please hit the like button. Give this video a thumbs up so that other people know, or YouTube will suggest this video to other Black women, and also subscribe to this YouTube channel. Yes, I could not log into my laptop without crying. Oh, that's so
Oh.
sad. Yes, yes. Many of us get to that point, unfortunately. Yes. I actually had a client talk about that she felt like the workplace bullies were bullying her through her laptop, right? So, yeah, the fear is real, and sometimes it doesn't work out and you do hit the ground, but it's like leaving any abusive relationship. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. These
Yeah.
jobs, abusive relationships. A W-2 investor, wow. Well, yes, thank you for sharing. My 4 words to myself: courage to change course. Yes. It's
Mhm.
hard, but it comes peacefully. Yes, we can always change course. We can pivot. We can pivot. Yes, it was my daughters begging me to leave after making their second call to 911. My
Ooh.
pressure was so high that 911 thought I was having a stroke. I
Mm,
left
mm.
2021 and no longer require blood pressure medication. I love it. I love it. That was a whole word. Every time is your time. Yes, I'm glad I'm able to catch this live. So much good information. Yes, ask for help. That's Sandra. Thank you, Sandra. I think Sandra's in Vietnam right now. She kicked that out to the curb. We're gonna do a masterclass for educators, Sandra and I, coming up. There are a lot of Black women are not in communities these days. Yes, there's been a huge disintegration of Black women communities to the point where many don't have people to ask for help. And you know what? I just want to add to what's so disturbing to me, Kendra,
Who's
is
that?
that I've seen a lot of Black women increasingly distrust one another because of
Ooh.
negative experience they've had with one another. And then it becomes generalized that all Black women are that way. And I want to say we're not all that way. Some of us are that way because, again, unhealed issues,
Trauma.
insecurity, internalized depression, all that kind of stuff, right? But I don't want us to believe that all of us are like that. And that's why I'm doing this on YouTube, because I want you to see that I'm rooting for you, sis. I don't know you. I'm rooting for you. I want you to be well. Kendra wants you to be well, all my guests. And I'm bringing more Black women so that we can support one another. So I hope that this is providing an opportunity for renewed hope or belief in sisterhood. Okay.
Amen.
Let's see. Let's see. Oh, nobody pivots like a sister. That's right. We're surprised. I'm glad that I followed the wisdom of my babies. Yes. Sugar honey iced tea. Yes. Um, okay. Hello. That is why that is what I'm doing. Have a temporary job at the moment to finish funding my business. Yes. Completely different feeling. Each day I go in knowing this temp job is funding my business. That's
That's right.
beautiful. I
That's
love that.
right.
Breathe, breathe brings clarity. So much encouragement. The job is my major investor. Yes, it is. Talk about Kendra Nelson. I think you're preaching now. Breathe. You're not your job. Get help. Then get out.
Hmm.
Yes, this knowledge sharing and transparency is what is going to help our sisters get free. That is my intention. Thank you for saying that. It's not going to get better. Don't believe the lie, and it's not you. A white
Ooh,
male with
that's
a felony
good.
conviction statistically has the same chance of securing a job as a black man or woman with no record at all. Sad facts. Leave that toxic job. That's
Mm,
disgusting.
mm,
That is absolutely disgusting.
mm,
Thank you for sharing that.
mm.
Please put Alicia Renice in your rotation. Alicia Renice is, so I've interviewed Alicia Renice. Alicia Renice is coming on again where we're going to talk about more about Black women, competition, jealousy, envy in the workplace. That's coming up in October. And that's an extension of my dissertation, which was actually on social comparison jealousy among African American women. So I've always thought about like, how am I going to share my dissertation with more people? I'm going to do that during that live. Okay. I see. Okay. Well, okay. Let's see. Okay. I feel this 100%. Asking for help was hard for me. Definitely a trauma response, but no more. Now I lean on my tribe. I love it. I love it. Um, Let me see. Oh, Marissa. Okay. Okay. So Marissa is helping me. So we talked about also queendom, right? We talked about being queens. We talked about these jobs can beat us down to the point where we become disconnected from ourselves. And I also have a workbook because I was so beat down at that job, Kendra. I
Mm.
was so lost. I was so disconnected from myself that I created a roadmap for myself. So that's what the Queendom workbook is. It's a roadmap to help you get reconnected to yourself so you can get
Yes.
clarity. So
Yes.
you might not be able to be at the exit part. You might be at I'm lost, right? So if that's you, then I have something for you as well. And so check that out. Okay. So you can get that in the description section. We love it here because supportive truth is so spoken here. This is helping so many sisters. Thank you. Great,
Mm.
great points, Kendra. Oh my God, my dear friend Colette Elizabeth. Thank you, my dear. Thank you, my friend.
Mhm.
Okay, so the super stickers, any donations to this channel goes to help Black women to access the master classes. So the master class, the first one I had with Anne-Marie Archer, the anti-HR lady, that one was dealing with save yourself, channel your inner Harriet, so you can get out of that toxic, hostile job with your sanity and your coins. So the replay is available for that, okay? Also, I'm having a masterclass in November with a Black woman financial psychologist who helped me get my money together so I can get out that toxic job. So we are having a masterclass in November. So I will periodically partner with a different Black woman to offer masterclasses to help Black women leave toxic jobs. This money, these donations, helps a Black woman who could not afford the masterclass to be to access the masterclass. So thank you so much, Colette. I appreciate you. Oh, that's going to be a great masterclass. Yes, and I was excited to get this help to Black women educators who suffer in silence. Yes. So keep an eye out for the masterclass I have with Sandra specifically for Black educators. And I have a special place in my heart for Black educators because, like I said, I used to work for the school district and it's treacherous.
Mm.
School systems are treacherous. I've been decimated by two Black women at work who carry the tea for white supremacy. Woo, that was deep. Thank you for hosting these interviews and making accessible to us. Oh, my friend Shalonda, you're welcome. Yes, it's going to be an excellent class. Can't wait for that. I can't wait for Alicia to come back. Yes, run, go get away. Okay, so yes, a collaboration. So, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. I know we went a little over, but I appreciate the level of activity in the chat. I appreciate Kendra and you authentically sharing your story.
You're
I think
welcome.
the audience really relates to what you're sharing. As I mentioned before, I will put Kendra's information. Ooh, we need one for librarians. Hit me up, whoever you are, hit me up. So maybe we can do one for librarians too. I didn't even think about librarians. I don't want to forget about you. So hit me up, okay? So for Kendra's information, I will have that information in the description section. Just give me a little bit. Marissa's going to help me out with that. So we have all her information description section. Also, what I talked about in terms of booking a discovery call with me, getting the Welcome to Your Queendom Digital Fillable Workbook. All that stuff will be in the description section. Again, give this video a thumbs up, okay? It lets you know to suggest this video to other Black women. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, Lifting as We Climb Consulting Wellness Services, please do so now. As I'm healing through that toxic job experience, I'm healing every day. I'm still
Right.
healing, okay? So as I'm healing, I'm reaching for as many Black women as I can to leave and heal from a toxic job, okay? And my ask to you, sis, as you're watching this video, oh, I love Sandra. As you're watching this video, share this video with at least one other Black woman. Because if you know a Black woman, more than likely she's in a toxic job too. Please share this video, okay? So thank you, everyone. I appreciate all of you. I really do. I appreciate you, and I wish the best for you. Continue to self-reflect from these videos and start thinking about your next move, okay? Okay, so we're signing off, everyone, and I will see you next time. Kendra, if you could just stay on for a moment. Bye, everybody.